Hello, welcome, world history students, to a bright, sunshiny day. It is beautiful outside. It's a little chilly though. A little chilly, but that's about as blue a sky as I've seen in a long time. So I think it's gonna be a good day. Anyway, welcome back to world history. Rather than doing the 5 questions today, I'm just going to make a little lecture note presentation. I am going to put a quiz available for you today as well. That's going to need to be done by Monday. Getting lots of people catching up on the stuff that they didn't get done earlier. That's great. It's stuff that we will get done. And just know that if you email me or if you send me a remind message or whatever, I will get back to you and I'll let you know what you need to get done. And I'll tell you exactly what you need to do to get the credit so you can move on. Okay. So I know that it's going to be a difficult process. Even for me yesterday, I sent out that message. The internet at my house went out yesterday, so I couldn't do that meeting. And I understand that might be happening with you. Maybe you got brothers or sisters. I got 3 at home running around that I'm trying to keep straight and get their work done. And I understand maybe your parents are home, maybe they're not. Maybe you have to do a lot of work with your younger siblings. That can be complicated, okay? Just stay the course. If you have questions, let me know, and we'll get through this, okay? So let's talk about World War I, otherwise known as the Great War, the war in Europe. And as you know, the most infamous of the World War I names, it is the war to end all wars, right? And it did that. No, it didn't. Okay, so here we go. Fighting between 1914-18. High-tech weapons, old tactics, 10 million dead, 20 million wounded, 8 million missing. Causes, what do you remember the causes again? The main causes that caused all the mania. M was for militarism, building up the armies. A was alliances. I totally feel like Blue's Clues when I ask you guys questions and nobody responds. Actually, that's not that much different than no, you guys, somebody usually responds. The alliances. Do you remember the 2 main alliance groups? We had the triple blank and the triple blank. Did I forget to present to my screen? I think I may have. Hold on. You may just be watching me. Oh, no. There we go. Now you can see my screen. And it is less awkward. Still somewhat awkward. But there we go. The 2 alliance groups, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. And the Entente, again, for our purposes, that's who we allied with. So we're going to call the Triple Entente the good guys. Okay? That's oversimplifying it a little bit, but it does help us to remember. And remember, Entente is a French word, so who's involved in that alliance? France, Great Britain, and Russia. Triple Alliance, however, Triple Alliance would be Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. Okay, now this is very similar to actually World War II, which is why I said yesterday in the video, someday they might say it wasn't World War I or World War II, but they'll just call it the Great Big Long Stinking War. Okay, I'm smiling because it's kind of funny, but it's not funny. So it was the deadliest war of all time up until World War II, which is when they called World War I World War I. So here we go. There's what it looks like: Triple Alliance, Triple Entente, and then we have other Russian allies because we do have what was the spark of World War I? That's right. It was when we still had more imperialism taking over other countries for resources, especially what continent did European countries want? That's right. They wanted Africa. And nationalism, extreme pride in your country, so much so that every other country is like, be gone, countries. We don't want to deal with you. Okay. Yeah, thinking others are inferior. That's our acronym MAIN. Then we add the A. One more because we do have a spark. What's the spark for World War I? It was the incident that lit the powder keg, the explosion, and that was anybody remember? The assassination of Archduke. Do you remember his name? Franz Ferdinand on, what was the date? Do you remember the date? June 28th, 1914. The war started exactly 1 month earlier. Yesterday, I told you that shows you that the armies were really like raring to go with this war. They were ready and prepared to fight a war. Okay. Do you remember who shot the Archduke Franz Ferdinand? It's a tough one. His name was Gavrilo Princip. Gavrilo Princip shot Archduke Franz Ferdinand on June 28th, 1914. And he was a Serbian nationalist. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the Archduke of Austria-Hungary. And then, as I talked to you yesterday, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Then who came to Serbia's defense? Russia declares war on Austria-Hungary. And then who came to Austria-Hungary's defense? Germany. Germany declares war at Russia. And that brought in England and France declare war on Germany. And then Italy's just like, you know what? We want a piece of this action too. We're declaring war on everybody. And pretty soon we had lots of fighting. Now, that's not every country in Europe, but there's a lot of countries in between there. So they kind of get roped into the fighting, even though they didn't even want to. Okay. Meanwhile, the United States. Okay, we went over this. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. The United States didn't enter until 1917. Now, we're going to come back to this later, but I am bringing it up now because being in America, we tend to think like, hey, the war doesn't start till we get there, but in fact, it did. It was going on for 3 years before the United States got in, and it made sense that we didn't enter because we had a period of isolationism. I mean, just like let's leave other countries out, like let's just handle our business. And we were isolated. We were cut off from the rest of the world by the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. And we didn't see a need to get involved. However, we were involved. We were actually sending weapons to the Allies. Okay. We were the Triple Entente, England, France, and Russia. We were helping them in certain ways. But we were also saying, hey, we're not involved. We're not getting involved, so don't bring us into this. So what did bring us into it? Good question. Well, they found it what they called the Zimmerman Note in 1917. Zimmerman Note was Zimmerman Telegram, sometimes it's called, was a note from Germany to Mexico saying, hey, Mexico, why don't you do a sneak attack on America? We will help you guys out. You guys defeat America. You get all that part of America that used to be Mexico back. We'll help give that to you, and then we can be allies. So really, it was basically Germany was passing a note to Mexico saying, hey, let's do a sneak attack on America. We will help you out. We found that, and we weren't real happy. And then Germany also broke the Sussex Pledge. So Germany was sinking lots of ships, okay? And if we were in class, we'd be watching videos about this, and so all sorts of stuff. But, you know, we're doing it differently, and you just got to listen and watch the clips I do send. But Germany breaks the Sussex Pledge, and the Sussex Pledge was them saying, hey, we're not going to sink any ships that aren't specifically warships, all right? And that's why I have this shirt on today. It says, the sea was angry that day, my friend, okay? If you can tell me what TV show that's from, I will give you extra credit, okay? But Germany was sinking some ships. We said, stop sinking ships that have nothing to do with the war. And Germany said, okay. And they pledged it to us when they signed the Sussex Pledge. But then guess what? That's right. They sank more ships. And the ship that they sank was, what famous ship sank, do you think? Oh, shoot. I thought it was coming next. That's okay. Zimmerman Note. The Sussex Pledge was Germany's agreement not to sink non-warships. Of course, the ship that you probably were thinking of, except for some of you who are more well-versed in history, but a lot of you probably said famous ship that sank was the Titanic. And you're like, wait, so the Titanic was controlled by the Germans? No, no, no. Titanic had already sank like 5 to 10 years ago. Well, I think it was like 6 years before this happened. And the Titanic was actually built by the same company of this ship that did sink. And the ship that did sink was called the Lusitania. And the Germans sank it. And we were like, you broke the pledge and you sank a passenger ship. Only it wasn't actually a passenger ship. We were sending weapons to the British, and the Germans may or may not have sank it. Either way, the boat sank, and we blamed Germany, and we were like, we're in this war now. Chances are we were looking for a way to get into the fight because at that point in time, the war had been going on for like 3 long years, and there were heavy casualties on both sides. And the United States was like, hey, if we don't get involved, the side that we want to win might not win. So that's when we got ourselves involved. Imagine the United States getting involved in a war that wasn't theirs. When would we ever do such a thing? Okay, so we get involved after the Lusitania is sunk by the Germans, or allegedly sunk by the Germans. Okay, here's what Mexico looks like before. Let's see, does this map have a year on it? Yeah, 1824. So actually the yellow area there used to be Mexico until we fight the Mexican-American War. And we basically said, hey, look, this is now the United States. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Hopefully you can. This area is going to be the United States. And Mexico's like, no, it's not. And we're like, yes, it is. And they're like, no, it's not. And we were like, yes, it is now. And we went and we fought over this territory. So the states that we end up getting from the Mexican-American War, we get states like California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Nevada, and parts of Utah and Colorado as well. So that's why Mexico may have wanted to fight against the United States in World War I. That's why the Germans sent the Zimmerman telegram to Mexico saying, hey, we'll help you get your land back if you fight the Americans. Mexico never did attack us, but that was one of the reasons that we got into the war, because we were saying, like, look, Germany is going to attack us and they're sinking our ships. What was the name of the ship they sank again? I would have accepted either the Lusitania or the Sussex. Both would be okay. The ship I did not accept was the Titanic, because what sank the Titanic? An iceberg. That's right. Actually, the story goes with the Titanic is that they actually had a wireless communication. Remember the telegraph? They were able to do that wirelessly. And allegedly, the Titanic had notification that there was an iceberg, or they were sailing in dangerous waters. And the guy who received the message was busy sending out messages from passengers to their loved ones. So he was literally basically texting and driving, and that's why they hit the iceberg. But we're here to talk about World War I. Sorry, I get a little sidetracked, but you guys are used to that by now, no doubt. Okay, now we could spend an entire semester on World War I, but we're not going to. Okay, we're going to just talk about a couple of key battles. This is one we're going to talk about. It's called the Battle of Verdun or Verdun. It's in France, and basically this battle is the epitome of trench warfare, meaning this is the signature battle of the war. When people talk about World War I, this is what they think of. If you have seen the movie, actually, I'm going to put a link today for movies that you can watch about World War I. Some of them are super long, but like, really, what are you doing for the next at least week and a half? Hopefully just a week and a half. But actually, there's a movie recently that came out that was called Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. Do you remember the part? Have you seen it? Anybody? I know we're more Marvel, but DC's not that bad. And Wonder Woman's actually in the trenches, right? Because he had all these machine guns and grenades and planes and tanks and things, and battlefields didn't work. So they dug these big, giant holes. They're trenches. Okay. And that's the scene in the movie where Wonder Woman like runs across the battlefield and she's like deflecting bullets with her armor and that sort of stuff. That part's not real. That didn't happen, but they did dig the trenches. And this battle, the Battle of Verdun, like exemplifies it because there was very little movement. In chess, it is called a when neither side is gaining any ground. Does anybody know what that's called? It's called a stalemate. In World War I, it was actually called attrition because both sides were losing. Both sides gained nothing but lost a lot. Okay. And this battle basically is the one that this is a signature battle. I don't know if I have pictures on it here, but the trenches were nasty. There's just mud, and then it would rain, and it would fill with mud, and they'd be walking around in mud all day. And actually, soldiers developed what was called trench foot, which is basically a fungus or bacteria or virus that got into their feet because it was always wet. And it would basically give their foot an infection so much so like their feet would turn all black and blue, and they get big and nasty, and they actually had to amputate. And it did lead to soldiers' deaths as well. It's called trench foot. Remember, just like every other war, most of the deaths of this war were not happening because of military wounds. They were happening because of disease and sickness. Obviously, this is the first time that I've ever taught World War I where people have actually heard of the Spanish flu, right? How many people out there have heard of the Spanish flu recently? It's been in the news quite a bit because they're like, that's the last major global pandemic. And that was a huge pandemic. And that's why people are making such a big deal about coronavirus or COVID-19, because the Spanish flu killed up to like about 50 million people. And that was spreading rapidly. Airborne diseases, hospitals were overwhelmed. And it was actually called the Spanish flu, not because it was only in Spain, but actually because the Spanish were like the ones leading the charge to fix or come up with the vaccine, medication to help treat it. So that's why it's called the Spanish flu. So back to Verdun. We're almost done for the day, by the way. Yeah, so this is what is that? It's a 10-month war, a 10-month battle. And basically in that 10 months, there was no change. Nothing, no progress from either side. And that's when people started realizing that this was just a huge, pointless war. And nobody was going to end the war until one side surrendered, but they didn't want to surrender. They wanted the other side to surrender. So it was just this ongoing war. Germany did take the early lead, but France fought back. And eventually Germany leaves and France wins. But what did France win? Well, they didn't really win anything. Just Germany finally just left. Okay. If you were writing, I would have had you write the stuff in black. Okay. I think we have one, maybe two slides left. Okay. Casualties of the Battle of Verdun. Germany, 430,000. Okay. Remember casualties. When we say casualties, that's dead, missing, or wounded. That's what that means. And wounded means they're wounded to the point where they can't fight anymore. So loss of a limb, hospitalization, something like that. 430,000. You want to see a good movie about the pointlessness of World War I? All Quiet on the Western Front. All Quiet. And like I said before, we would have, if we were in class, watched part of that movie, if not like big chunks of it. It is good. It was made in the 1900s, like 1980 maybe, but still, it's a great movie. Okay, France loses 550,000. Okay, so 550,000 again, kind of like the Haitian Revolution. So who loses more people here? France does, but who wins? France does. Okay, why do they win if they lose more? Because they had more that they could lose. Okay, if you think about back to the Haitian Revolution, they lost way more people, the Haitians, but they had way more people to lose. So France here has more people to lose. They do lose more people, but they win this battle. Here's a video here. I mean, I'm going to put this Google slide presentation online. I would highly recommend watching stuff like this because it brings it much more to life. We're finally to a point in world history when the clips that we're watching are actually live action, and you'll see like it's just this. Basically, they get bogged down in the mud. Here you see, I don't know. It looks like a horse to me. It could be a mule, but it is probably a horse. And you can see like they're just stuck. There's one. There's actually two. Maybe they are mules. I can't quite tell. I would play it, but I know the sound doesn't translate, so I'm not going to. But I mean, it's just like but everybody gets bogged down in the battle and there's no progress anywhere. Okay. And that's where I'm going to stop for today. That was plenty of video today. I am going to post the quizzes code. So please take care of that between now and Monday. If you have questions, concerns, comments, show on up to the Google meeting today. We're going to go 10:30 to 11 or 1:20 to 1:40. And otherwise, you can send me an email. You can send me a remind message or whatever. I know some of you have, and I haven't gotten back to you yet. Although some of you did send me like a remind message at like the wee hours in the morning. I don't know if you think Mr. Vogt is up at that time of night, but not necessarily. But I will be getting back to you as soon as I can, and I'll be updating the grades because I know that people have been working on that too. Hope all is well. Hope you guys have a great day. Get outside and it's a little chilly, but enjoy the day. Miss you guys. Remember to charge your Chromebooks.